Whenever you find this, that is where I want to begin, not with a season or a moment or a window of time that will eventually close and make this reading feel expired. This reading does not expire. The energy in it is not attached to a calendar, it is attached to you, to the specific frequency you are carrying in whatever moment you pressed play, whatever morning or midnight or ordinary Tuesday afternoon brought you here without you fully understanding why. You did not find this reading, it found you. And the fact that it found you now in this specific chapter of your life means something. Means that what is about to be said is relevant not to a general Virgo experience, but to yours. The particular and unrepeatable configuration of who you are right now, what you have been building, what you have been quietly asking for in the private language of your own longing, what you have been becoming, whether you have been conscious of the becoming or not, this reading is for that version of you, exactly as you are. Right now, I want to do something different before I describe a single image. I want to ask you to become very still, not performatively, not in the way of a guided meditation where stillness is an exercise, just genuinely, briefly, still, because what I am about to talk about is already in motion in your life, already generating itself, already moving from the interior space of your deepest wanting toward the exterior space of actual inhabitable reality. And things that are already in motion deserve to be felt rather than just heard. So, what have you been thinking about lately that you have not said out loud? Not the practical thoughts, not the organized, presentable, can be explained to another person thoughts, the ones that live slightly below that layer, the ones that surface in the quiet and then get covered again when the noise returns, the ones that feel slightly too large or too specific or too genuinely wanted to be casually mentioned in conversation. Those thoughts, they are the material of what you are manifesting, and they are more powerful than you know. The first image arrives and it has a quality I have not encountered before in any reading. It is not a single image. It is a sequence. 3 things moving in succession, each one the consequence of the one before it. And I want to describe them in order because the sequence is the message. The how one thing leads to another is the most important information this reading carries. The first thing I see is a seed, not planted, being held in a hand that is yours, cupped around it with the particular care of someone who understands that what they are holding contains something that has not yet declared itself. That is potential in its most literal form. Nothing visible yet, nothing that could be shown to anyone else as evidence of what it will become. Just the seed. Just the quiet, dense, entirely private fact of something that wants to grow. This is the wanting you have been carrying. The second thing I see is the same hand, but now it is pressing the seed into earth. And this is the part that I want you to pay attention to, because it is where so many people miss the mechanism of their own manifestation. The pressing of the seed into earth is not a dramatic act. It does not look like anything significant from the outside. It looks like a small gesture, an ordinary movement, something that could be easily overlooked by anyone watching who did not know what they were seeing. But it is the most important moment in the sequence. because it is the moment wanting becomes intention. The moment the thing held privately becomes a thing committed to the world, not announced, not explained, not defended or justified or made intelligible to anyone else, just placed in the earth. With the quiet certainty of someone who does not need to understand every step between here and harvest to trust that the planting is the right act at the right moment. The third thing I see is not the harvest, not yet. It is the first emergence, the first green, the first visible evidence above the surface of the earth that something real is happening below it, has been happening, is continuing to happen in the dark and the quiet and the unhurried pace of things that grow according to their own timeline rather than anyone's schedule for them. That emergence is what is closest to you right now. Let me speak about what specifically is being manifested. Because this reading is timeless and therefore cannot name dates or seasons or the precise external form of what is coming, but it can name qualities. It can name the texture of what is already in motion. And the texture is specific enough to be recognized. Something is coming that reorganizes your daily life. Not gradually, not in the way that things usually evolve, slowly enough that you only perceive the change in retrospect when you compare where you are to where you were. This is the other kind, the kind that produces a before and an after, where there will be a version of your life that existed prior to this arrival and a version that exists after it. And the difference between those two versions will be significant enough that you will be able to identify the moment of shift clearly when you look back at it. This kind of change does not always announce itself loudly in advance. In fact, it almost never does. It tends to arrive through a door you were not specifically watching, through a consequence of something you did that you did not identify at the time as particularly consequential. Through a meeting, a decision, a yes or a no, a moment of choosing yourself or choosing a direction that felt right without having a fully articulable reason, that turns out in retrospect to have been the exact pivot point the whole next chapter turned on. You may have already walked through that door. You may be standing in it right now. I see a second image, and it carries a very particular quality of gravity. I see something being released. And I want to be careful about how I describe this because release is one of those words that gets used in spiritual content in ways that flatten its actual experience. Release is not always peaceful. It is not always the gentle unclenching of something that was held too tightly and that drifts away softly when the grip relaxes. Sometimes release is a tearing. Sometimes it is the specific and uncomfortable experience of something being removed that has been part of the landscape of your life for long enough that its removal changes the entire feel of the terrain, even if the thing being removed was not serving you. What I see being released in your life right now is something you outgrew, not failed, not lost, outgrew. A version of yourself or a version of your circumstances or a relationship to something, a situation, a self-concept an agreement you made with yourself or the world about what was possible or what was available or what you were allowed to want that was accurate at a certain stage and has become inaccurate at this one. And the releasing of it, however uncomfortable in the experiencing of it, is the direct cause of what is being manifested. Because what you are calling in cannot fully arrive while the space it needs to occupy is still held by something else. The release is the making of room. The drastic effect on your life is not only what arrives, it is what departs to make the arrival possible. I want to speak to those of you for whom the releasing has already happened, who are already in the after, already in the strange, slightly vertiginous experience of having let go of something that was familiar, even if it was not right, and finding themselves in a space that is emptier than they expected, more quiet, more uncertain in its contours than the previous arrangement, which had the virtue of being known even when it was not good. If you are in that space right now, I want to say something to you directly. The discomfort of the empty space is not evidence that the releasing was wrong. It is evidence that something real was released, that the space is genuine, that the emptiness you are feeling is actual room rather than the performed spaciousness of something that was not truly let go. And actual room, real honest to whatever room that was cleared by something that mattered departing, is the specific and necessary precondition for what is being called in to arrive in its full and appropriate form. Stay in the room, even when it feels too large and too quiet, especially then. Tell me in the comments where you are in this sequence. Are you in the holding, still carrying the seed of something you have not yet committed to the earth? Are you in the planting, in that quiet moment of decision and direction where the wanting becomes intention? Are you in the waiting, in the underground time when nothing is visible above the surface but something is absolutely happening beneath it? Or are you already seeing the first green? Tell me. Not because the reading changes based on where you are, but because naming it, even to strangers in a comment section, is itself a form of the planting I am describing. Saying out loud, even in text, even to an audience of people you will never meet, this is where I am and this is what I am calling in, has a power that silent wanting does not fully access. Say it. The third image that comes through now is the one that addresses the drastic directly. I see a scale that tips, but not the scale from the previous reading about karma and consequence. This scale is different. This is the scale of a life, of the overall weight distribution of daily existence, of what takes up the majority of a person's time and energy and attention and hope. And this scale has been in a particular configuration for a while, a configuration that has had its own logic, its own reasons, its own history of how it got to be weighted the way it is. And something is shifting the weight significantly, irreversibly, in the direction of what actually matters to you rather than what has simply accumulated. And when a scale tips, Virgo, when the weight distribution of a life actually genuinely with material consequence shifts, the effect is not subtle. The effect is visible. The effect is felt. The effect reorganizes what the mornings look like, what the evenings feel like, what you reach for when you need grounding, what you are no longer reaching for because it is no longer the heaviest thing on the scale. This is what drastic actually means in the context of this reading, not catastrophe, not upheaval in the disruptive, destabilizing sense, the drastic effect of a life that has finally, through the patient and specific work of your own manifesting, tipped toward what is true. I want to address something that is sitting in the energy of this reading and that I think is important to name. You have been manifesting for longer than you have been calling it manifesting. This is a thing about you, Virgo, that gets overlooked in the general conversation about manifestation, which tends to focus on techniques and practices and the deliberate deployment of intention toward specific outcomes. You do not primarily manifest through technique. You manifest through alignment. Through the slow, consistent, sometimes almost invisible work of bringing your actual life into closer and closer correspondence with your actual values, your actual knowing of yourself, your actual understanding of what you are here to do and be and experience, every decision you made to live more honestly, every time you chose the thing that was true over the thing that was convenient, every boundary you held, every relationship you released, every opportunity you did not take because it pointed in the wrong direction, even when the wrong direction was offering things that looked appealing. Every one of those choices was a manifestation act. And they have been accumulating, building, compounding in the way that things compound when they are aligned with something real, rather than being expenditures of energy on things that do not ultimately serve the direction you are actually moving in. What is approaching is not the beginning of your manifesting. It is the arrival of what your manifesting has been building toward. The harvest does not always look like the seed, but it grew from it every single time. I see one final image, and it is the most spacious thing I have seen in any reading I have done for this series. I see a horizon, which sounds simple, which sounds like exactly the kind of vague, all-purpose spiritual image that gets used when specificity runs out. But I want to describe this particular horizon precisely because it is specific. This horizon is not far away. It is the kind of horizon that exists at the edge of an open field rather than the edge of an ocean. The kind that is walkable, that is not a symbol of infinite distance, but of immediate possibility. The kind of horizon where the thing on the other side of it is not mythically remote, but genuinely, practically, in your actual life reachable if you continue in the direction you are moving. And what is on the other side of it is not a grand, sweeping, everything changes at once arrival. It is a series of specific and ordinary things. A morning that feels different from the mornings of the previous chapter. A version of your daily life where the weight distribution has shifted enough that what you do with your time and attention and energy is more closely matched to what you actually are and what you actually want than it has been in a long time, maybe ever. A quality of peace that is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of genuine alignment between the inside and outside of your life. A life that fits, not perfectly, not without the ongoing work and the ongoing growth and the ongoing surprises that life always contains, regardless of how well things are going, but fits in the way that something fits when it was made for you rather than something you are trying to fit yourself into. That is what is at the edge of that horizon. That is what you are manifesting. That is the drastic effect, not a single event, a different quality of life built piece by piece, choice by choice, release by release, planting by planting from the inside out, by you. In the specific and unhurried and entirely serious way that you do things when you have decided they matter. You have decided this matters. And what you decide matters, Virgo, with the full weight of that Virgo intention behind it, has a way of becoming real that is unlike almost anything else. The horizon is close. Keep walking toward it. Not because you have to, because you already chose it. And choices like the ones you have been making have a way of honoring themselves. Whenever you found this, whatever moment brought you here, know that the finding was not random, and neither is what is coming.